What is up, Lions fans? Today we're going to talk about Alim McNeil and his contract. Is he worth it? Is he not worth it? My thoughts on the matter. And we're also going to discuss um, trade rumors concerning the Lions. And of course, I'm going to suggest a player that could be an underrated ad if the Lions want to do it. So let's get this started. Alim McNeil in the season has had 5 solo tackles and 2.5 sacks. He's had done this in 5 games. So a pretty decent start to the season. Um, Granted, he has only had the one great game this year, so Lions fans may be thinking, oh, do we really want to pay a guy this amount of money? Is he worth it? Is he good? What's the deal? So Lee McNeil is a 3 tech, so these guys are asked to pass rush a little bit more, but they're mainly still supposed to defend the run like most defensive tackles. And as we know, our run defense has been pretty dang good. So McNeil's at least definitely doing his job of run defense, and he also is PFF's 6th highest graded defensive tackle, so he's obviously doing his assignments well. So what about the advanced stats? Well, McNeil is 3rd in our team for quarterback pressures. Technically 2nd if you count Aiden Hutchinson being on IR as off the roster now. So obviously he's behind Levi and Williams 3K, but he's still getting himself a decent amount of pressures compared to the rest of the team. But what about his contract? What makes him bad or worth it? Is he worth it? So let's look at his contract real quick. If we look at his deal, he signed a 4-year, $97 million deal with $55 million guaranteed. So just to compare that to other teams, McNeil would be making, based off his full 4-year, $97 million deal, making $24.25 million a year. This would make him a top 3 paid defensive tackle. However, with his guaranteed, he is only making $13.75 million a year. So in other words, Brad's deal gives McNeil a lot of incentive. If you really think about it, McNeil is just getting paid normal starting defensive tackle money, which he is worth because he's great against the run. And however, Brad is likely also given McNeil incentives, so that way he's still motivated, he still works hard, and he also has bonuses. So in other words, Brad gave him starter money, and he gave him the possibility to become an elitely paid player. McNeil has also shown elite potential at times. He's a consistent run stuffer. He really fails at assignments. But he's also shown flashes of just being absolutely amazing. Against the Dallas Cowboys, he led all defensive tackles in quarterback pressures and had 2 sacks during the last week. He also had the most quarterback pressures by any defensive tackle in a game since 2006, with a total of 10 QB pressures versus the Giants in 2023. So obviously, we have seen flashes of McNeil being a top 3, top 2 pass rushing defensive tackle, while also being a good run stuffer. Has he consistently shown that? No, not yet. But he's shown the ability to do that and to continue to improve. And we have one of the best defensive line coaches in the NFL. So now that makes you think, okay, so Holmes is making on production. So he's obviously a starting defensive tackle, and this just gives him paid more to produce like he has here, right here, where he's gotten the production or at least close to it. So in my opinion, the deal works fine. It's a win-win. Either you pay him as a starting tackle, or he plays well enough that he earns that elite money. And now we'll move on to the next subject, an underrated guy that the Lions could trade for. Alrighty. Now we're going to play a game of Guess the Player. So, let's see if you guys can guess this. This player has a 9.88 RAS score. He was a first-round pick in 2021. He had 104 tackles, 3 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, and 9 tackles for loss in 2022. He had 89 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 QB hits, and 8 tackles for loss in 2023. Now, who could that player possibly be? I'll give you guys a couple seconds to guess. Dun 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 da 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 da. It is Jamin Davis. So you guys may be asking, why would I want the Lions to trade for Jamin Davis? And no, it's not to replace Aiden Hutchinson or any other major player. It's to replace Derek Barnes. You see, Jamin Davis has lost favor with the Washington Commanders. And while he has definitely been a little bit of an inconsistent player, he has obviously shown flashes of being a pretty dang good consistent player. Specifically, he's been kind of playing at that Sam linebacker position. He even has a little bit of experience playing DE this year, but he's not really been starting any games, so he's lost favor. So this is a guy that you could trade cheap things for. He could probably provide you with a stand play, and he's obviously got more potential than what Derek Barnes has been doing. So this is a guy who you could probably get for like a 5th round, 6th round, or 7th round pick. We'll have to see really what his true value will be, but he's been a healthy scratch in a couple of games. So this is obviously a guy the Commanders don't really view being on their team long term, and he's on his final year of his deal. Now his coverage grade, not grade, sorry, numbers are pretty decent. 2022, he actually had a pretty dang good year coverage-wise, but struggled a little bit more the next season, and he did pretty bad his rookie year. But honestly, not much better than Derek Barnes in that regard, and he won't be asked to go out in coverage as much as a Sam linebacker, but he obviously has potential. So this is a guy who I think would be, fun ad. He's got the athletic ability. Brad Holmes loves taking flyers on players. He likes trading those guys with a little bit of potential. Sometimes they work out. Sometimes they end up like down in Peoples Jones, but he likes taking flyers on players. I think John Davis would be an excellent add to this team. He replaces Derek Barnes, and he can compete with him next year, or if we can't somehow re-sign him, this is a player that could be an interesting grab on a prove-it deal and prove-it trade. Our defensive line is not the same without Aiden Hutchinson, him being on IR and Marcus Davenport also being on IR. So we now do not have either of our starting defensive ends for the rest of the year. Right now, technically, our starting defensive ends are Josh Pascal or James Houston, Isaiah Thomas, and Levi Onwuzurike, depending on what package we're in. So that obviously puts us at a little bit of a confusing spot. Like, what do we do? And so there's been talks about wanting us to trade. So we signed Isaiah Thomas, and he's an interesting player. I'll make maybe a little bit of a reaction to him later. But obviously it's not the move that we're going to make. Or at least hopefully it's not. But there's been a new player that's been rumored the Lions have reached out to trade for. That player being Haason Reddick, according to Jeremy Fowler at ESPN. So there's a little bit of questions right there. Haason Reddick will want a contract extension the moment he gets traded. So we know the Lions are going to try to trade for Reddick. You're going to probably be locking up another pass rusher. So that means we just extended McNeil. That means we're probably going to be extending Haason Reddick. So that locks up 2 pass rushers for the Lions, and soon it will probably be Aiden Hutchinson, which is 3 long-term pass rushers. So I kind of like that, but there are questions. Does he fit the culture? He hasn't played in a while. Will he play as well once he gets here? So there's some of that. So some people think he may not be a culture fit. I don't think it's that big of a deal. He's just going for a contract. Let's look at his numbers. How good is Haason Reddick? Reddick. So Reddick had 11 sacks last year, 16 sacks the year before, 11 sacks in 2021 with Carolina, 12.5 with Arizona. So ever since 2020, he has been double-digit sacks for the last 4 years. He's got himself a decent amount of tackle every year, at least 35 or more. So he's got some stuff going there. He's even had a couple pass defense, and he's had at least 4 or more run stuffs since 2020 each year. So what about some of the deeper stuff with Reddick? So in Reddick's 2022 season, just to show you how ranked it is, he had 16 sacks, which was second in the NFL at the time, 5 forced fumbles, which was first in the NFL. He had 3 fumble recoveries, 49 tackles, and he was a second-team All-Pro. Then off of last season, which was 2023, Haason Reddick led the NFL in created sacks. He was 3rd in pass rush win rate, and his PFF's 5th highest graded pass rusher, and had 63 total quarterback pressures on the year. So this guy is obviously an elite pass rusher, top 5, top 10. He's definitely going to be worth some form of trade, and he's been traded for less. He got traded for 30, so he's not going to be sold the farm like you would for maybe a Max Crosby. So this is a guy who could potentially be quite a good ad. So you can lock that up. I like the move. If we do trade for him, I think I'd give it, like, depending on the deal, an A-, B+ trade grade, and it would definitely give the Lions fans something to be excited about. One thing to note, maybe we'd have to wait a week before we let him play, make sure he gets in good shape and he gets to know the scheme a little bit. But I still think he'd be a very exciting player to have, and I hope Lions fans are excited at the thought of getting Reddick. and I truly hope we at least make some form of a deal. And with that, that's the end of the video. Have yourselves a good day.